Hey Summoners, welcome back to another ProGuides video. We're going to change things up and talk about the 10 worst champions in the game right now that you should be looking to avoid. We're not saying they're unplayable, especially if you enjoy playing them. However, there's a lot of room for discussion about these champions, and this is a way for us to begin the conversation. Honestly, a lot of these champions are close to hitting the mark and could end up fine in the future, but they'll need some sort of balance change or slight gameplay rework to achieve this. Do me a favor and answer our question of the day. What's the strongest non-ultimate ability in the game? In my opinion, it's a toss-up between Ornn's passive and Yasuo's Wind Wall. Ornn's passive provides a bunch of free bonus stats. It's essentially a free 2 to 5k worth. Yasuo's Wind Wall, well, I'm sure we all know about that one. Are you guys getting ganked in your own lane? Constantly demolished? Don't worry, we got you covered. ProGuides is the #1 proven way to quickly help you level up your League of Legends skills. Whether you're looking for tier lists, champion guides, coaching, or courses from your favorite pro players, ProGuides is where you'll find them. Even players like Nightblue, Bunny Fufu, and Loco Doco support ProGuides. So what are you waiting for? Click the link to start improving right now. Alright, let's get into it. First on the list is Calista. I think we can all agree that she's been pretty bad for a while, and she's also the epitome of the balanced team's biggest challenge. Strong and competitive, weak in solo queue. She's definitely seen brighter days, and at the moment, she's one of the least played marksmen in the game. Calista is a pick that empowers her support. She gives them a get-out-of-jail-free card with her ultimate, allowing them to expand their abilities and make plays they wouldn't otherwise be able to. Although Calista definitely has her defined strengths and weaknesses, it doesn't feel good for the majority of players when they have to suffer the results of her being an oppressive competitive pick. After several nerfs following her competitive dominance, Calista has hit a point where we don't really get to see her played at all anymore. Although she was used as a niche pick here and there in China and Korea last season, by patch 9.17, she held absolutely no competitive presence. Not picked until the end of the season, although drawing 2 random bans sometime on patch 9.19. A ghost of her former self, Calista has faced so many nerfs that it's difficult to justify playing her anymore. Aside from a small set of dedicated players, Calista doesn't get much play, and for good reason. She's clunky, not as oppressive as before, and her competition is simply too fierce. Although Calista brings a lot of things to the table, they don't merit picking her when you could pick another champion who deals more damage, or your opponent could pick one that invalidates you picking her anyway. Next up on the list is Udyr. Udyr is a pretty outdated champion. He runs at you and hopes he can reach you. He is a powerful competitor in Set, but I definitely feel like Set brings a lot more to the table for what he is. Once Udyr reaches his target, he basic attacks them and then basic attacks them a couple more times after putting on a new costume. It doesn't feel very rewarding to play him because you have to go through a lot just to make it into auto attack range. If your opponents allow a champion with such low mobility to reach them, it definitely feels like you should be rewarded with a bit more than some fancy basic attacks. Some insane dueling strength in the early game is currently keeping him afloat, but I'd like him to be more than just a cheese pick that requires an early lead to win his game. When I think of a juggernaut, I think of a titan that punishes you and your teammates for your mistakes. Like a giant monster, once they're in the mix, they wreak havoc and cause quite a bit of distress. Compared to the likes of Darius, Garen, Set, and Mordekaiser, I don't feel quite the same impact with Udyr. Is Udyr even a juggernaut? He plays like one whether or not he is one, but doesn't reward you nearly as much as he should when he succeeds. I promise you, we don't hate animals, but Volibear is also on our list. For very similar reasons to Udyr, Volibear doesn't feel like the best champion to play. Honestly though, his win rates are pretty good, so he's arguably the most questionable pick in this video, but it's worth noting that you should avoid him because he's getting a rework soon. You'll be investing time and practice into a champion whose kit won't be the same in the near future. Arguably, it's a waste of time to invest in Volibear, but if you enjoy playing him or care about winning only, then go ahead and keep playing him because he actually isn't weak, he's just not very strong either. As another juggernaut type of champion, Volibear doesn't reward you that much. He's definitely in a better place than Udyr because he's able to stuff a lot of dashes and escapes with his E, but is overall not as powerful as many other picks. The very fact that he's getting a rework also speaks to how even the balanced team and designers of the game agree with the community that he needs some love. Gnar is an interesting champion with clear power windows. A little too clear, to be honest. Gnar is proving himself to be a bit weak at the moment in spite of some recent buffs. While I would say that the design behind Gnar is actually pretty solid, it's difficult to make him work. When you see him raging and ready to transform, that's a big cue to back off. Taking advantage of these windows can be difficult when all 5 of his opponents understand what they should be doing versus it. Of course, you're going to find various levels of success or failure based on ranking with him. Gnar feels like he gets weaker as you climb higher. His laning isn't bad, he can definitely bully out many enemies, but later into the game it often feels like you'd rather have someone with more reliable engage. What ends up happening usually is you end up transforming and having to make some kind of play during that power window. If you don't, you'll be at a significant disadvantage as an entire team while Gnar is waiting for his passive to come off cooldown. Next up is Galio. We've seen him go from being an OP mid laner that one-shot his enemies to a niche support pick and then to complete irrelevance. After taking away his ability to taunt flash his opponents, it felt like a huge part of what made Galio a powerful pick was taken from him as well. There's a lot more workarounds to his kit as a result of these changes. At the end of the day, Galio is supposed to be a champion that can protect his allies and hard counter magic damage. It doesn't feel like he accomplishes these very well, since his ultimate is very telegraphed, and he can't do anything if his enemies flash out of his taunt range. Galio feels clunky at best, and whenever you play him, your options feel super limited. He can't effectively flank, although his peeling is still pretty decent. If you wanted a more defensive champion though, you have plenty of other options you could choose from, ones that are often much more versatile. Sylas from day one has always been the type of champion that was set to be difficult to balance. He brings a lot of power with him as he can steal any of his opponent's ultimate abilities. There needs to be sacrifices made in order to balance this. Nerf after nerf have left Sylas in what I believe to be an ideal state for him actually. Someone who you can only pick in niche situations. While this isn't ideal for Sylas players, I think it makes sense for him to be that sort of pick when his ultimate ability will always be tied for the best in the game, since you can always copy whichever one is the best. I don't think he'll be receiving many changes that'll make him a powerful pick in solo queue. If he does, he'll likely need nerfs shortly after, as this wouldn't necessarily make him the healthiest pick for the game. Unfortunately, Sylas is likely doomed to be a lower win rate champion than others because of his power and competitive play, and is one players should likely avoid, unless of course they love playing him. Next on the list is Akali. Ever since her rework, there have been so many complaints about her. It was a heaven send when she finally lost her ability to void turret damage. In spite of this, she's continued to hold a lot of presence in professional play while retaining a pretty low win rate in solo queue. Common trend here, huh? Akali is set to receive a couple more changes soon, targeting her safety. This is one of the few things Akali still had going for her, as they took out a lot of features from her kit that made her strong previously. Namely, the ability to avoid turret aggro with her Shroud, the stun on her R, and the ability to clear both what was slightly behind her and in front of her with her Q. Akali's win rate has been pretty low for a while now, and the current nerfs lined up for her won't help this one bit. The first part of her ultimate will require a target, meaning that she'll have one less ability to jump out of danger than before, and her Shroud's reliability is also taking a hit, as hitting her with crowd control will reveal her for the duration of the effect. Let's break the ice by talking about Lissandra. Although she was a staple of professional play and solo queue last season, a lot less players are picking her now. Personally, I'm kinda sad about where she's sitting at the moment because she's a simple but effective champion. However, the biggest hit she ended up taking as a result of her dominance in pro play were nerfs to her wave clear. The reason that Lissandra hasn't been finding success ever since is that wave clear was basically the first step in her ever getting to do anything. Lissandra is a mage with lower than average range, leading to her getting bullied out by pretty much every other mage in an isolated lane. As a trade-off, she's one of the most reliable champions in terms of hard engage and setting up plays. The game plan as Lissandra is to make play after play. While her damage is pretty good, she's more of a utility mage whose redeeming factors are crowd control and stalling teamfights. Without wave clear, Lissandra isn't able to contest pushes and therefore unable to help her side lanes. Well, technically she can, but it'll usually come at a pretty high price. Ideally, I think if some other part of her kit got hit instead, like reducing or taking out the self-healing on her ultimate, or increasing the cooldown on it in the late game, could have allowed her to remain playable while still lowering her power level. With the current state of Aftershock, where it's significantly weaker for non-tank champions, I think Lissandra would also be at a healthier point than she was last season. However, she's had to face the balance changes she deserved last season without a reassessment for this one yet. In spite of how many times Ramus says it, it's really not okay. While he's a hard counter to teams that are heavily stacked with attack damage, it's simply not enough. A similar champion exists in Malphite, but Malphite's backline access and reliability make him a much stronger pick. Ramus's whole gimmick relies on him using his power ball, accelerating directly into his foes. Unfortunately for him, however, this ability can be cancelled because it's a channel. If he's able to successfully reach his target, he's rewarded with a single target taunt and a consistent slow through his ultimate ability. It's not too bad, especially if he has only one major target. However, in many other situations, this is still problematic. Running Cleanse, building a Quicksilver Sash, or simply having a powerful magic damage threat can all shut Ramus down. It's really not that difficult, and Ramus's only saving grace is how simple he is, as well as the fact that he's pretty easy to play him to his full potential. The biggest issues with Ramus is that there are too many ways to counter him, and the fact that his most important ability is susceptible to being cancelled. Finally, our last pick is Corki. I haven't seen much of this guy in a while, and it's really not that surprising. Originally conceptualized as the marksman you need when you lack magic damage, it feels like Corki really has no place in the current state of the game. There's only one real thing that makes Corki worth picking, and that's his package. However, it comes at the expense of picking a pretty weak laner, especially in the current meta. All bot laners can bully him out of lane, while mid laners can either all-in him for solo kills or farm it out and do just as much, if not more than him. It's kind of ironic that we've come to a point where players are now able to play mages bottom, as this basically makes Corki a champion that honestly isn't necessary to the game anymore. I'm hoping that he receives some buffs because he's not poorly designed or anything in my opinion, he's just irrelevant and doesn't add much more depth to the game as it is. Alright, that concludes this video. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Once again, make sure to check out ProGuides.com to take your game to the next level. We have so much content there that we want you guys to check out, and also make sure to stay tuned to our YouTube channel. Until next time, good luck on the Rift, Summoners.